Hello guys, welcome back to another Flutter video. In this video, we'll learn how to work with Dismissible widget. For that, let's create an app that allows a user to swipe to dismiss items from a list. The idea is to create a list of tasks where each task can be swiped away to perform an action such as mark it as completed or to delete the item from the list. We'll add in a floating action button so a user can go to a new page and view the completed tasks. So for that, we need to learn how to work with dismissible widget. The dismissible widget allows a child widget to be dismissed by dragging to a specific direction. So if you want to follow along, create a new Flutter project and you can call this dismissible widget and then select the empty template. After that, come right here inside of this lib folder and create a new file and you can name this home_page.art. So because we want to perform tasks as marked as completed or delete them from the list, we'll need to update our UI after each user interaction. So for that, let's select the options to work with a stateful widget. Change the name right here to be home page. And now let's create a page. So call a scaffolding widget. We need to provide the app bar property and also the body property. So for the app bar, let's call the app bar widget. Let's define a title to it, and this can be a constant text widget. And then for the text, let's say swipe to complete. Let's also add some background color. Let's use color dot from RGBO method. So right here, for the red, this will be 14. For the green, this will be 19. And then for the blue, this will be 39. And the opacity will be 1. And then for the foreground color, let's use colors.white. So for the body property, I will use a ListView widget inside of a safe area. So call right here safe area widget. And then for the child, let's call ListView dot builder name constructor. So then we have to provide right here item count. And then for the item builder, this will take an anonymous function. Here you provide the context and also an index as an argument. Then for each item inside of this list that we'll provide right here, we need to return a widget. So return right here a container widget. So to represent our tasks inside of our app, let's create a list of items and we'll generate 10 items and each item will be a string. So this will be a final list and the type will be string. And you can call this tasks. This will be equal to the list dot generate method. Right here we want to generate 10 items and for each item I will provide an index and then let's use an arrow function to return a string. So for the string we'll do right here tasks and then do a string interpolation using the index plus 1. So for the completed task, I will use a set of type string. So each time a user swipe to complete a task, we'll add the item inside of that set. So this will be our final. Call the set class and provide the type right here to be string. And then let's make it private and call this completed tasks. And this will be equal to an empty set for now. So now just copy right here your list. Call right here tasks dot the length property. And then let's get the current task for each index. So final task, this will be equal to tasks. And then use the bracket and provide the index. So now let's apply some customization to our container widget. So the first property I want to add is the margin property. This will take a edgely set.all with the value of 8. Then let's call a padding This will also take a edge set.all with a value of 8. You can make each one of them constant right here. Then you can call the decoration property. Call the box decoration. Let's define a border to it. So call border. Let's call border.all and let's provide the weight to our border, and the value will be 0.3. Add a comma. Let's also add a border radius. Let's use border radius dot circular with a value of 8. So after the box decoration, call a child property, and this will be a list style widget. So for the list style widget, we just want the title property. You can call a text widget, and let's provide the current task as the argument. So call right here task. So now save everything. Now let's call this homepage widget inside of main.dart. So come right here, replace your scaffolding widget to our widget, import to the package, save everything. So here we have a list of tasks. So now to make this task dismissible, we have to come right here in the container widget, select the option to wrap with a widget, and just call the dismissible widget. So for the dismissible widget, we have a few rules we have to follow. First is to find a unique key. So for that, you can use the key class right here, and this will expect a unique string. So we can call right here a task and provide it right here. Then we also can constrain the direction of this dismissible widget. For that, you can use this class or this enum right here, dismissible direction dot, and you have properties right here for down, end to start, horizontal, none, start to end, up, on vertical. So for example, if you use right here end to start, you can see we are now able to dismiss right here from the right side to the left side. If you try to do the opposite, we can, but if you change right here to start to end, now we can swipe from left side to the right side. You can also use horizontal, and this will allow us to move from right to left and left to right. So after the direction, we also need to handle this on dismissible callback. So this will take this dismissible direction as an argument. So we need to call this method because after the widget is dismissed, we need to perform some tasks. In our case, if it's left to right, we want to mark it as completed. But if it's right to left, we want to remove this item from the list. So right here, you can check the direction that the user swipe and then check if this equal to the dismiss direction in dot, let's say, start to end, and then we'll call our method to mark it as completed or to remove item from the list. So for that, let's go right here and define two methods. This will be of type void and make it private and call this mark tasks as completed. So inside of this method, let's call the set state, and let's call now the completed task dot add, and we'll provide a task as an argument. So come right here. To make a name argument, call the curly brackets and you do require. Then let's provide the type to be string and call this task. Give it a comma, and we also need the index. So come right here, require. The type will be int and call this index. So right here, you just call the task. And then we need to remove this widget from the widget tree so we don't get an exception. To do that, you just call right here, yo, tasks list, dot, and call the method remove at, and you provide the index as an argument. So each time we mark an item as completed, we also will remove this item from the list and update our UI. So now to remove your item, you can come right here, call the void, make it private, and then delete task. Right here, we'll do the same thing basically, called set state. Now just call the tasks dot remove at, and you provide the index. So right here, to make a name argument, just use the curly brackets and then just copy this property right here of this argument require int type. So now we just need to call these methods right here. So if this dismiss direction is start to end, that means the user want to mark task as completed. So right here you provide the text and the index. So otherwise we'll delete the tasks. So come right here and provide the index. Add a semicolon right here. So now save. Let's test it. You can see now we are able to remove item from the list. But as you can notice, we don't have any visible option to show the user what action is doing. So for that, we also have these two properties, the background property and also the secondary background property. So let's define a container widget for it. Right here, that's called decoration property, called box decoration. Let's add a color to it. So you can use right here, colors dot green for this one. We can also add an alignment to it, called the alignment in none, with the value right here, center left. We are using this alignment in none because we'll have a child for this container widget as an icon. So we want this icon to be visible to the user, so we use this alignment property this way. So come right here, call now the child. This will take an icon widget. Let's call icons dot the check widget, give it a comma, and then call the color property, and let's use colors dot white. Make this one a constant. So we need to also provide this one. So come right here, copy all these properties, paste right here this container widget, and let's change it a few properties right here. So now will be center right, the color now will be red, and then the icon will be the delete icon. So now save. You can see right here when you swipe, we are able to see these widgets right here. Let's also add a padding to this container widget. So come right here, call padding, call agile set.symmetric, and just call horizontal, and the value will be 16. Make this one a constant. So come right here, copy, and paste it right here. So now we can see right here, we are able to see the widgets and see the action that we are performing. So now let's give the user the ability to see the items that is completed. So come right here. After the ListView.builder, call the floating action button property. This will take the floating action button dot extend name constructor. So here let's define a label and also an icon to this floating action button. So call the icon widget, and call icons dot the check widget. Here for the label, let's define a constant text widget, and for this will be tasks. So the onPress will define an anonymous function, and here let's navigate to a new page. So call the navigator dot push. Here you provide the context and also the material page route. And then for the builder, let's use an arrow function and call our page. So let's create a new page right here. New file. Let's call this completed underscore task dot dart. So for this widget, we can use a stateless widget. Change the name right here to be completed tasks. And here, let's return a scaffolding widget. So for this widget, we'll get a text by using dependency injection. So let's define right here, final list. The type will be string, and call this tasks. And then come right here inside of this constructor, give a comma, and then require this dot tasks. So now just copy this widget right here. Let's call it here. And then you do right here, tasks. And this will be equal to our completed task set dot and do to list to it. So save everything. So now come right here. Now we need to come right here, copy the scaffolding widget, and let's apply the change that we need to apply right here. So you can come right here, copy this return statement, come here, let's replace everything. So we don't need this floating action button. We also don't need this dismissible widget, so come right here, remove this dismissible widget. So right here we just have tasks without the underscore, and then for the text this will be completed tasks. So now inside of this list tile we also now need the trailing property. Let's call an icon widget right here, and let's call icons dot the check underscore circle widget. Then give it a comment. Let's call the color property. Let's use colors dot green. And then for this text widget right here, let's give it a comment and then call the style, and then call the text style. Here you can use the color, and let's use colors dot gray. Give it a comma, and then for the decoration property, let's call the text decoration with the value of line through. So save everything. So let's go back to the home page, and then for this floating action button, let's apply some background color and foreground color. So for that, let's copy these properties from the upper bar widget and just paste it right here. So save everything. So now reload your app. Now let's test everything. So completed the tasks right here. Let's go to the tasks, and you can see we have right here the list of completed tasks. If you add more, you will see it right here inside of your list. So this is it for this video. If you find this video useful, give a like and also subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can get notification when new videos are coming out. This is it. Thanks for watching.